Hello, dear friends and followers. With great joy and enthusiasm, we begin today's story. Ava Johnson sat in the back seat of the car, watching the urban landscape of Atlanta flash by through the window. It was her first day at her new school, and her nerves were on edge. Her hands were sweaty as she clutched the strap of her backpack. Beside her, her mother, Lisa, drove calmly, sensing her daughter's anxiety. "It's going to be fine, Ava," Lisa said with an encouraging smile. "You'll make new friends and learn a lot." "I know, Mom," Ava replied, trying to sound confident, but the uncertainty in her voice was clear. As they arrived at the prestigious Westwood Academy, Ava was struck by the size of the campus. The school was known for its academic excellence and top-notch facilities. She knew it would be a big step in her education, but she also knew she'd have to work hard to fit in. "Let's go, sweetheart," Lisa said as she opened the car door. "You're going to do great." Ava took a deep breath and stepped out of the car, smoothing out her new uniform. She walked alongside her mother to the main entrance, where they were greeted by the school secretary. "Good morning. Welcome to Westwood Academy." The secretary greeted them with a warm smile. "You must be Ava. Principal Thompson is expecting you in her office." Ava and Lisa followed the secretary through the pristine hallways until they reached the principal's office. Mrs. Thompson was a middle-aged woman with a serious expression and sharp, evaluating eyes. She rose from her chair and greeted them both with a firm handshake. "Welcome to our school," Mrs. Thompson said, without a smile. "We expect great things from our students here." "Thank you," Lisa replied, trying to be polite. "Ava is really excited to start." Ava just nodded, feeling small under the principal's piercing gaze. After a brief conversation, Mrs. Thompson indicated that Ava should head to her classroom, where she would meet her new classmates and teachers. "I expect you to do your very best, Ava," Mrs. Thompson said before they left. "We value excellence here." Ava nodded, feeling a mix of nervousness and determination. She followed the hallways, trying to memorize the way so she wouldn't get lost. Finally, she found the classroom and stepped inside. All eyes turned to her, making her cheeks flush. "Hi," she said shyly. "I'm Ava." The teacher, Mrs. Miller, smiled gently and motioned for Ava to take a seat. "Welcome, Ava. We're happy to have you here. Class, please say hello to your new classmate." "Hi, Ava," the students replied in unison, some with friendly smiles, others just curious. As she sat down, Ava felt a momentary relief. Maybe things wouldn't be so bad after all. She looked around, taking in the new environment and faces. But somewhere in the back of her mind, the cold interaction with Mrs. Thompson still lingered. Ava knew her journey at Westwood Academy was just beginning, and she was determined to do her best, despite the uncertainties that might arise. Ava quickly adapted to the routine at Westwood Academy, but the feeling of being watched never left her. It was as if every move she made was being meticulously evaluated. Despite this, she made a few new friends, including Jasmine, a friendly and outgoing girl who quickly became her best friend. One morning, after science class, Jasmine pulled Ava aside. "Hey, Ava, want to have lunch together today? I want to introduce you to the rest of the group." Ava smiled, relieved to be making connections. "Sure, Jasmine. I'd love to." In the cafeteria, as they settled with their trays, Jasmine introduced Ava to her group of friends. Everyone seemed welcoming, and Ava started to feel like she was finally finding her place. "So, Ava," said David, a tall boy with glasses, "where are you from?" "I just moved here from New York," Ava replied. "My dad got transferred to a new job here in Atlanta." "That's cool," commented Sarah, a girl with curly hair. "Atlanta's an amazing city. I'm sure you'll love it here." Weeks passed, and Ava excelled in her classes, earning the admiration of many of her classmates. However, her relationship with Principal Thompson remained tense. The principal often watched her with a critical and stern look. One day, during a school assembly, Mrs. Thompson took the stage to make an announcement. "Students, today I have a few words to say about the importance of discipline and academic excellence," she began, her firm voice echoing through the auditorium. Ava felt a chill run down her spine as she noticed the principal's eyes fixed on her while she spoke. When the assembly ended, Mrs. Thompson asked Ava to come to her office. I'm concerned about your adjustment to our school, Ava, the principal said bluntly. I expect more from you, considering the level of this institution. Ava was taken aback by the harshness of her words. I'm doing my best, Mrs. Thompson, she replied, trying to stay calm. I'm not convinced, the principal retorted. You need to put in more effort, especially when it comes to your attitude and behavior. Ava left the office feeling humiliated and unjustly criticized. When she found Jasmine in the hallway, she couldn't hold back her tears. Hey, what happened? Jasmine asked, worried. Mrs. Thompson, Ava began, wiping her eyes. She said I'm not trying hard enough. No matter what I do, it's never good enough for her. Jasmine hugged her. Don't let her get to you. You're one of the smartest people I've ever met. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Ava felt a small comfort in her friend's words, but the shadow of Principal Thompson still hung over her. She knew she'd have to face many challenges ahead, but she was determined not to let the principal's bias destroy her confidence and determination. The tension between Ava and Mrs. Thompson came to a head a few weeks later. Each day, the pressure Ava felt grew, but she kept giving it her all. One day, during math class, Mrs. Thompson walked in for a surprise observation. Ava was solving a problem on the chalkboard when the principal entered. Silence filled the room as Mrs. Thompson watched closely. Let's see what we have here, the principal said, walking toward the board. She looked at Ava's solution and frowned. This is wrong. Ava felt a shiver run down her spine. I'm sorry, Mrs. Thompson. I thought it was right. The principal picked up the chalk and began correcting the problem. You need to try harder, Ava. This level of performance is unacceptable for our school. The classmates sat in silence, and Ava's face burned with embarrassment. Jasmine, sitting in the front row, looked at her with sympathetic eyes. But I studied really hard for this, Ava replied, trying to keep her composure. Clearly, it wasn't enough, the principal said coldly. You have potential, but you need to learn how to use it properly. Now, go back to your seat. Ava returned to her desk, holding back tears. The class continued, but she could barely focus. All she could think about was the humiliation she had just experienced. During recess, Jasmine found Ava in the courtyard. Hey, don't let it get to you. She was totally unfair. I don't know, Jasmine, Ava said, her voice trembling. Maybe she's right. Maybe I'm not good enough for this school. Don't say that, Jasmine insisted. You're amazing. She's just being harsh because she doesn't know the real you. As they talked, Principal Thompson walked by and paused for a moment. Ava, I need to see you in my office later. Ava nodded, feeling her stomach churn. Yes, Mrs. Thompson. After the last class of the day, Ava made her way to the principal's office. She knocked on the door and waited. Come in. The principal's voice sounded from the other side. Ava stepped inside, and Mrs. Thompson looked at her with a stern expression. Ava, I need to be honest with you. I expected more from a student of your caliber. I'm trying, Mrs. Thompson, Ava replied, her voice weak. Effort isn't enough if there are no results, the principal responded. And I expected you, of all people, to understand that. Now go home and think about what we discussed. Ava left the office feeling more defeated than ever. When she got home, her mother immediately noticed something was wrong. Ava, what happened? Lisa asked, concerned. Ava broke down in tears. Mrs. Thompson humiliated me in front of the whole class today. She said I'm not trying hard enough, that my work is unacceptable. Lisa hugged her tightly. Oh, sweetheart. I'm so sorry you have to go through this. We'll talk to your father about this. You don't deserve to be treated like that. Later that night, Michael, Ava's father, came home from work. Lisa told him about what had happened at school. This is unacceptable, Michael said, visibly upset. We're going to deal with this. Ava, you are a brilliant and talented young woman. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. Ava looked at her parents, feeling a bit stronger from their support. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mom. She knew the battle was just beginning, but with her family and friends by her side, she felt a little more prepared to face Principal Thompson and prove her worth. The next morning, Ava still felt the weight of her confrontation with Mrs. Thompson. As she got ready for school, her parents were in the kitchen, discussing the situation. Michael, we have to do something, Lisa said, boiling water for tea. Ava can't keep going through this. It's unfair and cruel. I know, Lisa, Michael replied, frowning. I'll talk to Principal Thompson. This has to stop. Ava walked into the kitchen, overhearing her parents' conversation. You don't need to do anything, she said, trying to sound brave. I'll be fine. Michael looked at his daughter tenderly. Ava, we're here to support you. You don't have to face this alone. Lisa came over and stroked Ava's hair. Sweetie, we want you to know that we're on your side. No matter what happens. Ava felt comforted by her parents' words, but she was still nervous about what might happen at school. When she arrived at Westwood Academy, she tried to focus on her classes and avoid the principal as much as possible. During lunch, Ava and Jasmine sat together in the courtyard. Are you feeling any better today? Jasmine asked, concerned. Sort of, Ava replied. My parents are going to talk to Mrs. Thompson, but I'm not sure if it will help. I hope it does, Jasmine said, holding Ava's hand. You deserve to be treated with respect, just like anyone else. That evening, after dinner, Michael decided it was time to act. Lisa, Ava, I'm going to write an email to Mrs. Thompson and set up a meeting with her tomorrow. This can't go on. Lisa nodded, supporting her husband's decision. We're with you, Michael. Ava felt nervous, but also relieved to see that her parents were willing to fight for her. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mom. The next day, Michael went to the school, accompanied by Ava and Lisa. They were greeted by the secretary, who led them to the principal's office. Mr. Johnson, Mrs. Johnson, and Ava, please come in, the secretary said with a tense smile. Principal Thompson sat behind her desk, her expression serious. Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. What can I do for you today? Michael began speaking, keeping a calm but firm tone. Mrs. Thompson, I'm here to discuss the treatment my daughter Ava has been receiving at this school. She has been humiliated and disrespected in an unacceptable way. The principal frowned. Mr. Johnson, I'm simply enforcing the rules and maintaining the standards of our school. If Ava feels disrespected, it's because she needs to try harder. Lisa stepped in. Our daughter is trying very hard. The issue isn't her lack of effort, but the way she's being treated. The principal sighed, visibly irritated. I'm doing my job. If you have a problem with that, maybe Ava should consider another school. Michael stood up, his face serious. We're not going anywhere, Mrs. Thompson. We expect you to treat our daughter with the respect she deserves. If this doesn't change, we will take further action. The principal looked at Michael, realizing he wasn't backing down. I understand. I will try to be more mindful of Ava's concerns. As they left the office, Ava felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. She knew the battle was far from over, but she felt empowered by her parents' support. You were amazing, Dad, Ava said, hugging Michael. We're in this together, Ava, he replied, hugging her tightly. We'll always be here for you. Ava returned to class, knowing she still had challenges ahead, but determined not to let Mrs. Thompson or anyone else diminish her. With her family's support, she felt stronger and ready to stand up for justice and respect. The next few days were a mix of tension and hope for Ava. While Principal Thompson hadn't confronted Ava directly since the meeting with her parents, the atmosphere at school still felt heavy. Ava tried to focus on her studies and the friendships she was building, but the feeling of being constantly judged never quite left her. During a history class, Mrs. Davis was teaching about the civil rights movements. Ava was immediately captivated, absorbing every detail. When the class ended and students began to leave, Mrs. Davis called Ava over. Ava, can you stay for a moment? The teacher asked with a smile. Ava nodded, walking over to Mrs. Davis's desk. Of course, Mrs. Davis. I noticed you were really engaged in today's lesson, the teacher said. Would you like to explore the topic further? Maybe we could work on a special project together. Ava's eyes lit up. I'd love that. I think it's really important to understand civil rights history. Great, exclaimed Mrs. Davis. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. You've got a lot of potential, Ava. Keep it up. Ava left the classroom feeling inspired. However, as she walked down the hallway, she saw Principal Thompson talking to some teachers. As she passed by, she overheard a comment that made her heart sink. She may be doing well now, but let's see how long that lasts, the principal said, casting a cold glance in Ava's direction. Ava quickened her pace, trying not to let Mrs. Thompson's words get to her. She found Jasmine in the courtyard and told her what had happened. She just can't stop, can she? Jasmine said, outraged. She's supposed to be supporting us, not tearing us down. I know, Ava sighed, but I'm not going to let it get me down. Mrs. Davis wants me to work on a special project about civil rights. It makes me feel like I can really make a difference. Jasmine smiled. That's amazing, Ava. You're going to do great. And remember, we've all got your back. As the days went by, Ava threw herself into the project, researching and learning about inspiring figures like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks. She felt more connected to her own identity and history, and that gave her strength. One day, while she was in the library, Ava was surprised by Principal Thompson. The principal approached her and, in a condescending tone, said, I hope you're using your time here productively, Ava. We don't want you losing focus. Ava looked up from her books and, with newfound confidence, replied, I'm working on a project about civil rights. It's something really important to me. The principal narrowed her eyes. Let's see if that turns into something positive. I hope it does. Ava returned to her work, feeling the pressure mounting. But instead of feeling discouraged, she used it as motivation. She knew she had to prove her worth not just to Principal Thompson, but to herself and to everyone who believed in her. At home, Ava told her parents about the progress on her project and Principal Thompson's continued remarks. Michael, with a determined look, said, We're so proud of you, Ava. Keep going. Truth and justice always prevail. Lisa agreed. And remember, we're always here for you. No matter what happens, you're never alone. Ava smiled, feeling strengthened by her parents' love and support. She knew she still had many challenges ahead, but with the determination and support of her family and friends, she was ready to keep fighting for justice and respect. As Ava's civil rights project progressed, she became more deeply involved and passionate about the topic. Her research led her to discover stories of courage and resilience that inspired her to keep going, despite the obstacles she faced at school. However, the shadow of Principal Thompson still loomed over her. One day, while Ava was in the library reviewing her notes, she was approached by a group of older students. They were members of the student council, and the president, a boy named Marcus, came up to her. Hey, Ava, I heard you're working on an amazing project about civil rights, Marcus said with a smile. We'd love to hear more about it, and maybe help out. Ava was surprised but happy with the interest. Hi, Marcus. Yeah, I'm researching the civil rights movement and the importance of peaceful resistance. It would be great to have more support. Perfect, Marcus replied. We're organizing a presentation for Equality and Social Justice Awareness Week. We think your project would be an incredible addition. Ava's eyes lit up. That would be wonderful. Thanks, Marcus. With the help of the student council members, Ava's project began to come to life. They helped her organize talks, create informational panels, and prepare a multimedia presentation. The enthusiasm of her peers gave Ava a new energy, and she felt more confident than ever. One afternoon, as the students were gathered in the library discussing the final details, Principal Thompson walked in. Her cold gaze swept across the room, landing on Ava. What's going on here? The principal asked, her tone filled with suspicion. We're helping Ava with her civil rights project, Marcus responded without hesitation. We think it would be a great contribution to Awareness Week. Principal Thompson frowned. I hope this doesn't interfere with your academic responsibilities. Don't worry, Mrs. Thompson, Marcus said firmly. We're all committed to keeping our grades up while also promoting awareness about important issues. Ava felt a lump in her throat, but kept her head held high. We're working hard to make something positive, Mrs. Thompson. I believe this is something the school should support. The principal studied the group for a moment, then reluctantly nodded. Very well. As long as it doesn't interfere with your academic responsibilities, you may continue. Once the principal left, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Phew, that was close, Jasmine said, letting out a deep breath. Thank you all for supporting me, Ava said to her friends. It means a lot to me. Marcus smiled. We're in this together, Ava. Your project is important, and we all want to make a difference. Awareness Week finally arrived. The auditorium was packed with students, teachers, and even a few parents. Ava was nervous but also excited. When it was time for her presentation, she took the stage with Marcus and Jasmine by her side. "Good afternoon, everyone," Ava began, her voice strong and clear. "Today, we want to share the importance of the civil rights movement and how it shaped our society. This project is a tribute to those who fought for equality and justice." The presentation was a success. The students gave a standing ovation, and Ava received many compliments. Even some teachers came up to congratulate her. At the end of the event, Principal Thompson approached Ava. "I have to admit, Ava, your project was impressive. You showed a lot of determination and dedication." Ava looked at the principal, surprised by the praise. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. That means a lot to me." That night, as Ava returned home, she felt more confident and assured. She knew she would still face challenges, but with the unexpected support of her peers and the reluctant approval of the principal, she felt more prepared to move forward. "I'm so proud of you, Ava," Lisa said, hugging her daughter. "You really made a difference." Michael smiled, holding Ava's hand. "You showed everyone how strong and talented you are. Never doubt yourself." Ava smiled, feeling stronger than ever. "Thank you, Mom." "Thank you, Dad. I know I still have a lot to face, but with you both by my side, I feel like I can accomplish anything." After the success of Ava's project, the atmosphere at Westwood Academy seemed lighter. Ava felt encouraged and received smiles and congratulations from students and teachers. However, Principal Thompson still wasn't completely convinced. The following week, during a school board meeting, Mrs. Thompson discussed the recent events with other administrators. "Ava's project was a success," said Mrs. Davis enthusiastically. "She inspired many students and brought important awareness to the school." Principal Thompson crossed her arms, visibly displeased. "Yes, it was a good project, but we can't forget our academic priorities. I don't want this kind of event to distract students from their studies." Mr. Harris, one of the school counselors, chimed in. "I disagree, Mrs. Thompson. Projects like Ava's are essential for students' development. They learn about history, social justice, and, more importantly, how to be engaged citizens." The principal sighed. "I understand the importance, but we need to find a balance. I'll be keeping a close eye on Ava's performance to make sure she maintains her grades." That same day, the principal called Ava in for a meeting in her office. Ava felt a chill when she received the message, but she took a deep breath and prepared herself for the encounter. "Come in," the principal said when Ava knocked on the door. Ava entered and sat down, trying to keep her composure. "You wanted to see me, Mrs. Thompson?" "Yes, Ava." The principal began in a neutral tone. "I want to congratulate you again on your project. It was well done. However, I need to emphasize the importance of staying focused on your studies." "I understand, Mrs. Thompson," Ava replied calmly. "I've been working hard to balance both." "Good," the principal said, "but I'll be monitoring your performance closely. I expect to see academic results that match your potential." Ava nodded, feeling somewhat relieved but still cautious. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mrs. Thompson. I won't let you down." As she left the office, Ava found Jasmine waiting for her. "So, how did it go?" "It was interesting," Ava said, trying to sum it up. "She congratulated me but said she's going to keep an eye on my grades." Jasmine made a face. "She just can't leave you alone, can she?" "It doesn't matter," Ava replied, determined. "I'm going to prove to her, and to myself, that I can do this." In the days that followed, Ava threw herself into her studies, determined to keep her grades up. During a science class, the teacher called the class's attention. "We have a new lab assignment," Mr. Clark announced. "And Ava, I'd like you to lead one of the groups. Your recent performance has been exemplary." Ava smiled, feeling proud. "Of course, Mr. Clark. I'd love to." At the end of class, while Ava was organizing her group, Principal Thompson walked by and watched from a distance. Mr. Clark approached her. "Ava has been an exemplary student," Mr. Clark commented. "You must be proud." Principal Thompson gave a forced smile. "Yes, she's doing well. I hope she continues." Meanwhile, Ava and her group started working on the science project. Marcus, who was part of the group, approached her. "You're doing a great job, Ava," he said. "I'm sure we're going to nail this project." "Thanks, Marcus," Ava replied with a smile. "I'm excited to see what we can accomplish together." The science project was progressing well, and Ava felt like she was proving her worth once again. With each achievement, she felt more confident and determined not to let Principal Thompson or any other obstacle stand in her way. When she got home, Ava told her parents about her day. "I'm so happy to see you thriving, Ava," Lisa said, hugging her daughter. Michael agreed. "You're proving to everyone that you're capable of anything. We're so proud of you." Ava smiled, feeling stronger with each passing day. She knew the battle wasn't over, but with the support of her family and friends, she felt more ready than ever to face any challenge that came her way. As time went on, Ava started to feel like she was changing the perception of many at Westwood Academy, especially her classmates and teachers. However, Principal Thompson remained a looming presence in her school life, and Ava couldn't ignore the possibility that her struggle was far from over. On a sunny day, Ava and Jasmine were preparing for the school debate that would take place that afternoon. The topic was the importance of civil rights in modern society, and Ava was determined to express her passion for the subject. "Are you ready?" Jasmine asked, nervously flipping through her notes. "I can't believe we're about to debate in front of the whole school." Ava smiled. "I'm more than ready. This is our moment to shine. Let's show them what we've learned." "Exactly. And remember, Mrs. Thompson might be watching, but that doesn't matter. What matters is what we're standing for," Jasmine said, trying to calm her nerves. As the girls entered the auditorium, they noticed an air of anticipation. The students were seated, and the teachers were in position to observe. Ava and Jasmine exchanged glances, and Ava felt a surge of determination. "Let's do this," Ava murmured. As the debate began, Ava delivered her argument with clarity and passion. She spoke about the importance of the civil rights movement, the fight for equality, and how the legacy of leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks still resonated in today's society. "We need to understand that civil rights aren't just a chapter in history, but an ongoing struggle," Ava said, looking out at the audience. "Each of us has a role to play in the fight for equality." When it was Jasmine's turn to speak, she emphasized the relevance of activism in schools and how it was vital for young people to unite and make a difference. "If we don't start fighting now, when will we be heard? It's our duty to push for change." Applauded for their performances, the two girls felt empowered. At the end of the debate, Principal Thompson stood up to make a comment. "I'd like to congratulate all the participants in the debate. Your passion is admirable, but we must remember that education is also about discipline and respect for the rules," the principal said, her gaze fixed on Ava. "We need to make sure this passion doesn't interfere with academic responsibilities." After the debate, Ava felt disappointed, but she decided not to let the principal's comments affect her. As she left the auditorium, Marcus walked up to her. "You were amazing, Ava. Seriously, you moved all of us," he said enthusiastically. "Thank you, Marcus," Ava replied, her heart warmed by the praise. "That means a lot to me." Later, while Ava was at home, her parents came into her room. Michael, with a serious look on his face, said, "Ava, we need to talk about something important." Ava frowned, feeling a bit apprehensive. "What's going on?" "We got an email from the school," Lisa began. "Principal Thompson wants to meet with us to discuss your situation." Ava felt a knot in her stomach. What does she want? Is it about the debate? "We're not sure," Michael responded, "but we need to be prepared. We'll go to the meeting together." The next morning, the meeting with the principal was scheduled. Ava's family entered Principal Thompson's office, where the atmosphere felt tense. Thompson sat behind her desk with a serious expression. "Thank you for coming," the principal began, her tone formal. "I want to discuss some concerns regarding Ava's academic performance and the impact of her civil rights project." "But she's doing well," Michael interrupted, his voice firm. "Ava's getting good grades and is dedicated to her studies." "Yes, but what's being said around school is important," the principal replied, looking directly at Ava. "We need to ensure that you're not becoming a distraction to other students." Ava took a deep breath and decided to speak up. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm just trying to make a difference. My project is about civil rights and how each of us can fight against injustice." Thompson frowned, visibly uncomfortable. I understand your intentions, but you need to remember that not everyone shares your views. School is a place where we need to respect diverse opinions. But Mrs. Thompson, Lisa said, her voice calm, respect must go both ways. No one should be treated unfairly, especially in an educational environment. The principal looked at the family, somewhat disarmed. Yes, I agree, but we will continue to monitor the situation. We expect Ava to keep up her grades and follow the rules. As they left the office, Ava felt confused. She really doesn't get it, does she? She might not fully understand, but you're making progress, Michael said, placing a hand on her shoulder. Keep focusing on your studies and on making a difference. Ava nodded, still determined. She knew the fight wasn't over, but with the support of her family and friends, she was ready to continue her journey in pursuit of justice and equality. After the tense meeting with Principal Thompson, Ava felt a bit discouraged, but the fire within her remained strong. School life went on, and Ava focused on her studies, even though she knew the situation wasn't completely resolved. One afternoon, while Ava was in the library, she saw Marcus reviewing his notes for an exam. He seemed deep in thought, and Ava decided to join him. Hey, Marcus, studying for the math test? Ava asked, pulling up a chair next to him. Yeah, and I'm totally lost, Marcus replied with a nervous smile. These equations are driving me crazy. Ava laughed. I can help if you want. I've always liked math. You do that? That'd be awesome, he said, excited. Thanks, Ava. As they studied together, Marcus began to share some stories about his family. Did you know my grandfather was an activist back in the 60s? He took part in several civil rights marches. Ava looked at him, surprised. Really? That's amazing. What did he do? He was always on the front lines, fighting for change. Once, he showed me pictures of him at one of the marches. He always believed that change starts with each person's voice, Marcus said, his eyes lighting up. That's exactly how I feel right now, Ava said, moved. I want to make a difference too. You already are, Marcus replied. Your civil rights project has impacted a lot of people. You're inspiring others to stand up. The conversation flowed as they studied, and Ava realized how much her connection with Marcus was motivating her. By the end of the afternoon, they said their goodbyes, promising to meet again for more study sessions. The next day, Ava and her class had PE. While playing basketball, Ava noticed Principal Thompson watching from the sidelines. The principal's expression seemed to be a mix of concern and disapproval, but Ava decided she wouldn't let it affect her. When class ended, a few students approached Ava. Hey, you did great out there. You really have talent, complimented a boy named Leo. Thanks. You played really well too, Ava replied with a smile. You should join the school team. They're recruiting new members, Jasmine suggested, excited. Ava hesitated, but something inside her began to stir. Maybe I will. It'd be a good way to get more involved in school. As Ava left the court, she spotted Principal Thompson approaching her. Ava, can we talk for a moment? Ava felt her heart race but answered, Of course, Mrs. Thompson. I've been thinking about your project and the impact it's had on the school. I'm concerned it might be taking your focus away from your academic responsibilities, the principal said firmly. I'm dedicated to my studies, Mrs. Thompson. The project is important to me, and it's teaching me a lot about history and activism, Ava responded, feeling more confident. I understand that you're trying to make a difference, but I don't want this to affect your academic performance. You need to make sure your priorities are in order, the principal said. I'm doing my best to balance everything. I just want people to understand that the fight for civil rights is still relevant and important today, Ava replied, her voice steady. Principal Thompson watched her for a moment, and for the first time, Ava noticed a crack in her tough exterior. Ava, do you really believe you can make a difference? Yes, I do. If we don't fight for this, then who will? Ava asked with determination. The principal remained silent, and Ava sensed that maybe she didn't have an answer. I think you have more strength than I initially thought, the principal finally said, her voice softening a bit. But remember, that strength comes with responsibility. Ava nodded. I promise I'll stay focused on my studies, but I'm also going to fight for what I believe in. As Ava left the conversation, her heart was racing. but she felt a wave of relief. She realized that she had made progress, not just in her own journey, but perhaps in how Principal Thompson saw her too. At home, Ava told her parents about the conversation. "She didn't completely dismiss me. I think she's starting to see what I'm trying to do," Ava said. "That's a big step, honey," Lisa said, smiling. "Keep being yourself. You're changing hearts and minds." "Yeah, and remember, the most important thing is that you stay true to your values," Michael added. Ava smiled, feeling stronger than ever. She knew there was still a lot of work to do, but she was determined to keep fighting for justice and equality, one step at a time. As Ava continued her journey at Westwood Academy, the tension between her and Principal Thompson seemed to grow. With the upcoming Civil Rights Awareness Week, an important school event, emotions were running high. Ava was eager to make a difference, but she knew the principal had a rigid view of what the school should be. That morning, Ava was preparing to present her idea for Civil Rights Awareness Week in a meeting with the principal and the teachers. She gathered her materials, nervous but determined to make her voice heard. "Are you ready?" asked Jasmine, who was walking with her to the principal's office. "I'm not sure. What if she doesn't like my idea?" Ava replied, worried. "Hey, you've already proven you're capable of a lot. Remember the debate and your project. You'll do great." Jasmine encouraged her. With a final deep breath, Ava stepped into Principal Thompson's office. The principal was joined by Mr. Clark and Mrs. Davis. The atmosphere was tense, and Ava felt the weight of expectations on her shoulders. "Thank you all for coming," the principal began. Looking at Ava, "We're here to discuss your proposal for Civil Rights Awareness Week." "Thank you for meeting with me, Mrs. Thompson," Ava said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I want to organize a series of talks and activities about civil rights, highlighting the importance of equality and activism." "That sounds interesting, Ava," Mr. Clark commented, encouraging her. "How do you plan to implement this?" Ava explained her plan with enthusiasm, detailing the talks, interactive activities, and even a student art exhibit on the theme. "I want everyone to feel included and learn about the impact civil rights have on our lives today," she concluded. Thompson listened carefully, but her expression didn't change. "Ava, I understand that you have good intentions, but this approach seems a bit ambitious. We need to make sure the schedule doesn't disrupt regular classes." Ava felt disappointed, but decided to stand her ground. "But Mrs. Thompson, if we don't talk about these important issues, how can we learn? Civil rights affect all of us." The principal frowned. "I don't want this to become a distraction. We need to maintain a learning environment." Mrs. Davis stepped in. "Ava's right, Mrs. Thompson. This is a crucial topic that can educate and inspire our students. We need to find a way to support this initiative." "I agree," Mr. Clark added. "Activism and education go hand in hand. This is a valuable opportunity." After a tense moment of silence, the principal looked at Ava. "If you want to move forward with this, you'll have to commit to keeping up your grades and staying focused on your responsibilities." "That's the condition." Ava nodded, feeling hopeful but still cautious. "Of course, Mrs. Thompson. I'm willing to put in the effort." "Good. We'll set some guidelines and see how this can work," the principal replied, her posture relaxing a bit. "But I want to make it clear that this will be closely monitored." Ava left the office with a mix of relief and anxiety. "I think I did it," she said to Jasmine, who was waiting outside. "I knew you would. I'm so proud of you," Jasmine exclaimed. In the days that followed, Ava worked tirelessly to organize Civil Rights Awareness Week. With the help of Jasmine, Marcus, and other classmates, they made posters and planned the activities. The atmosphere at school began to shift, and many students started showing interest. One afternoon, while Ava was in the library, Marcus approached her. "Hey, Ava, I overheard some people talking about the event. A lot of folks are excited." "That's amazing. I really hope everyone wants to take part," Ava replied, smiling. "I want it to be a meaningful experience for everyone." "However, I've heard some negative comments from a few students," Marcus said, his tone worried. "Do you think the principal might try to shut it down?" Ava hesitated. "I don't know. She can be tough, but I'll make sure everything is in order. I won't let anyone sabotage this." That night, as Ava prepared for bed, she thought about the challenges that still lay ahead. I just want everyone to feel safe and respected, she murmured to herself, looking at the mural in her room, which had pictures of civil rights activists. The morning of the event arrived, and Ava was nervous but determined. When she walked into the school, the atmosphere was electric. Students and teachers were helping set up displays and getting ready for the talks. However, as Ava began organizing everything, she noticed Principal Thompson standing by the entrance to the auditorium, watching. The principal's expression was stern, and Ava felt a chill run down her spine. "Let's do this," Ava whispered to herself as she prepared to give the first speech of Civil Rights Awareness Week. With her heart racing, she stepped onto the stage, ready to stand up for her beliefs and for justice. The Westwood Academy auditorium was packed, buzzing with anticipation. Standing center stage, Ava felt the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had worked hard to prepare this event, and now, in front of her classmates, teachers, and even some parents, she was ready to make her voice heard. She glanced at the audience and spotted Jasmine and Marcus, both waving at her with encouraging smiles. Next to them sat a group of students who looked hesitant, but Ava knew they were a sign of the change she was trying to create. "Good afternoon, everyone," Ava began, her voice strong. "We're here today to celebrate Civil Rights Awareness Week. This event is an opportunity for us to reflect on our history, our challenges, and, most importantly, our responsibilities as citizens." The audience began to applaud, and Ava felt her heart warm. We live in a society where the fight for equality is still necessary. Today, we'll hear inspiring stories from activists, and we'll have activities that will help us understand how we can make a difference in our communities. Right after her introduction, the first speaker, a local activist named Maria, took the stage. She started sharing her personal story about facing discrimination and how she fought for equal rights in her community. Maria's words resonated with everyone, and Ava noticed how completely engaged the audience was. After the talk, there was a Q&A session. A student raised his hand, visibly emotional. "Maria, how did you find the courage to fight when things seemed so difficult?" Maria smiled. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the determination to keep going despite it. I always believe that every small step counts." Ava watched as Maria's words inspired her classmates. It was exactly what she had hoped to achieve with the event. After several more talks and interactive activities, it was Ava's turn to give her own speech. As she approached the microphone, her palms were sweaty and her heart was racing. But she also felt the strength of all the people supporting her. When we look at the history of civil rights, we see that many fought before us to ensure that we all have a place in this world, Ava began. But the fight isn't over. We have to be willing to stand up and say enough to injustice. A murmur of agreement swept through the audience. Ava continued, her voice growing stronger. "Why should we, as students, care about this? Because we are the future of our school, our community, and our country. Each one of us has a role to play. We can't stay silent in the face of oppression." Principal Thompson's eyes were locked on Ava, but there was a hint of surprise in her gaze. The young girl was truly moving people. Whether in the classroom, on the sports field, or at home, we always need to stand up for what's right, Ava concluded. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can change the world. The auditorium erupted into applause. Jasmine was standing, clapping enthusiastically, while Marcus shouted, "You were amazing, Ava." As the event neared its conclusion, Principal Thompson stepped up to the stage to offer some remarks. The room went silent as she began to speak. "Today, I witnessed an event that exceeded my expectations," the principal said, her tone serious. "Ava, I recognize your effort and passion. However, we need to ensure that these lessons are applied constructively and respectfully within our school." Ava held her breath, anxious to hear what the principal would say next. "While I was critical of your proposal at first, it's clear that you've managed to bring the school together around such an important topic," Thompson continued. "So, I'd like to congratulate you. The event will be considered a success and a learning experience for all of us." Ava could hardly believe what she was hearing. The principal's support was a major victory. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson. I hope we can continue this conversation and explore more ways to help our community," Ava responded, feeling a wave of excitement. After the event, as the students began to disperse, Ava was surrounded by her friends. "Ava, you crushed it. I've never seen the principal so engaged," Jasmine said, grinning. "It's true. You made a difference today," Marcus added, clearly impressed. Ava smiled, but one concern still lingered in her mind. "So, what's next? The fight isn't over." "We can keep organizing events and promoting discussions on these issues," Jasmine suggested. "We have to keep the momentum going." "Exactly," Marcus agreed. "And we can get more people involved. Let's spread the message." As they talked about their next steps, Ava felt a surge of hope. She knew the road ahead would be long, but with her friends by her side and a new vision taking root within the school, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In that moment, as the sun set over Westwood Academy, Ava realized that the storm might still be approaching, but with unity and determination, she and her friends would be ready to weather it. The morning after the awareness event started with renewed energy at Westwood Academy. Students excitedly discussed the speeches, and many were eager to learn how they could continue the fight for civil rights. Ava felt energized too, but a small bit of anxiety settled in her heart. She knew Principal Thompson could still pose challenges. During lunch, Ava met up with Jasmine and Marcus. "I can't stop thinking about what we can do next. We need to do something big, something that involves the whole school," Ava said, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Yeah. How about a petition to increase curricular diversity and include more civil rights history in our classes?" Marcus suggested. "That would be amazing." Jasmine replied, "I think a lot of students would join us. But if we're going to do this, we need to be ready for any pushback from the principal." Ava nodded. "I get that, but we can't let fear stop us from acting. What we're doing is important." The trio began discussing their strategy and planning what they needed to do. As they headed back to class, Mrs. Wilson, their teacher, entered and made an unexpected announcement. "Good morning, everyone. Today, we have a special guest. Principal Thompson asked me to introduce a former student, who is also a civil rights activist, to share her experiences with you," Mrs. Wilson said with a smile. The students murmured with curiosity. Within minutes, an elegant woman with short hair and a determined look entered the room. She introduced herself as Dr. Angela Reynolds, a well-known activist and author. "It's a pleasure to be here with you all. I'm a former student of Westwood Academy, and my fight for civil rights began right here, in this very place," Dr. Reynolds started, and the students fell silent, listening intently. "When I was your age, I faced challenges similar to what many of you are facing today. It's important for you to stand up and fight for what you believe in. Change starts with you, here and now," she said, her voice resonating in the room. Ava was completely absorbed, and Dr. Reynolds' words ignited a new flame of motivation within her. As Dr. Reynolds wrapped up her talk, the students were given the chance to ask questions. "Dr. Reynolds, what did you do when you faced people who didn't believe in your cause?" a student asked. She smiled. "I always tried to understand their point of view, but I also made sure my voice was heard. Persistence is key. And never underestimate the power of unity. Together, you are stronger." When the talk concluded, Ava turned to Jasmine and Marcus. "We need to do something now. We can't let this energy fade away. Let's create the petition and ride the momentum from Dr. Reynolds. We can even ask her to sign it," Jasmine suggested. With the idea firmly in place, the three of them began drafting the petition and talking to their classmates. The excitement was palpable, and many students expressed their willingness to support the cause. However, as the petition began to gain traction, Principal Thompson called Ava in for a discussion. Ava's heart raced. What would she say now? "Mrs. Thompson, I wanted to talk about the petition we're organizing," Ava started, trying to keep her composure. "I know about the petition, Ava," the principal interrupted, her tone serious. "And I need to tell you that I'm concerned about the direction this could take. But, Mrs. Thompson, this is to educate and inspire our community. We can't ignore these issues," Ava replied, feeling frustration bubbling up. "Ava, I understand your passion, but you need to consider the implications. Not all parents and community members will support your vision," the principal said, crossing her arms. "That doesn't mean we should give up. We need to move forward and create a safe space for discussions about civil rights and equality, Ava argued, her voice growing firmer. The principal sighed, looking out the window as if weighing Ava's words. Look, I appreciate your determination, but this isn't easy. What you're proposing could cause division. If we don't talk about it, the division is already there. We need to bring this to light and address it together, Ava said, her eyes fixed on the principal. After a moment of silence, Principal Thompson finally responded. I'll consider your words, Ava, but I want you to be aware that it won't be easy. I don't expect it to be easy, Mrs. Thompson, but I'm willing to fight, Ava replied, feeling stronger than ever. In the days that followed, the petition spread throughout the school and into students' homes, and Ava became an active voice not only among her peers but also in her community. Dr. Reynolds, impressed by the students' energy, offered her assistance, and word began to spread. Ava, Jasmine, and Marcus met frequently, organizing meetings, discussing plans, and making posters to raise awareness about the petition among more students. Finally, the day arrived when they would present the petition to the principal and the school board. The meeting room was packed, and the pressure was palpable. Ava took a deep breath, feeling the strength of her friends beside her. We're here today to talk about including civil rights history in Westwood Academy's curriculum, Ava began, her voice resonating with confidence. As students, we believe it's vital to understand our past to shape a better future. Change isn't just necessary, it's our responsibility. After a passionate and well-structured presentation, the board members began to discuss among themselves. Ava watched anxiously, but also with hope. After what felt like an eternity of debate, the board president finally turned to the room. The proposal to include a diverse civil rights curriculum is something we will take into consideration. We appreciate everyone's participation and the passion you've shown. Ava's heart raced. They still didn't have a definitive answer, but the conversation had begun. As the meeting concluded, the students left the hall in a mix of emotions. You did it, Ava. You really did, Jasmine exclaimed, hugging her tightly. But this isn't the end. It's just the beginning, Ava replied, her heart brimming with hope. As they walked out of the school, Ava looked at her friends, feeling that, no matter what happened next, they had planted a seed of change. The fight for justice and equality was far from over, but together, they were ready to face any challenge. And as the sun set behind Westwood Academy, Ava knew that true justice was a journey worth taking. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed creating this content for you. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to receive all our updates. If you want to share your ideas or experiences in the comments, we'd be thrilled to read and respond to all of you. See you in the next video. A warm hug to all.